First is the biography of the author named Tammy Mobayed. He holds Bachelor of Science and Master of Science in Psychology from Queen's University Belfast and is currently a Master of Arts candidate in Islamic Thought and Applied Ethics at Hamad bin Khalifa University, Qatar, as well as a Master of Philosophy candidate in Child Psychology from his alma mater in Northern Ireland. Next is the definition of the terms discussed in this case study. First is transhumanism, which is the belief or theory that the human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations, especially by means of science and technology. Next, transhumanists refer to the scientists or people who believe the idea of transhumanism. Next, transhuman defined as transcending human limits or called superhuman. The first individual who is seeking a transhumanist intervention is the king of Uruk from the Akkadic epic of Gilgamesh, that quest for immortality that often cited as the end goals of transhumanism. He used the magical intervention rather than science and reason. Next is Daedalus. He finds the ways to improve human capabilities with engineering-based solutions instead of magical intervention. This shows that transhumanist theory has been found in humanity's earliest texts. However, usually the beginning of transhumanist theory or belief begin during the age of European Enlightenment. Bostrom is one of the most vocal proponents of transhumanism amongst philosophers. He argues for the position that transhumanism can lead to an improvement of our species, allowing us to evolve into transhumans and eventually posthumans. The benefits of transhumanism include radical extension of human health span, eradication of disease, elimination of unnecessary suffering, and augmentation of human intellectual, physical, and emotional capacities. According to Bostrom, transhumanists will utilize medicine, economic, social, institutional designs, cultural development, and psychological skills and techniques. Transhumanists see humans as half-baked creations or imperfect and full of limitations such as disease, aging, and death. Therefore, they strongly advocate to overcome the limitations as simple as physical appearance, sensory capabilities, intelligence, lifespan, and perhaps up to immortality. According to Nick Bostrom, there are three benefits of transhumanist practice. First and foremost, transhumanism concerned with the lengthening of human lifespan. Longevity has become the main focus of transhumanists. Bostrom argues that longer lives would lead to higher levels of maturation and growth, thus can produce enriched society. Secondly, transhumanism also emphasizes on the improvement of intellectual capacities like memory, attention, and problem-solving skills. Lastly, transhumanism can potentially increase human sensory capabilities. For example, Bostrom believes that humans may adopt sensory gifts of animals, magnetic orientation, sharper eyesight, and others through transhumanism. All of these three concerns can be done by the exploitation of technology such as genetic engineering, cybernetics, and nanotechnology.
Transhumanism can be applied in four categories, which are nanotechnology, cybernetics, pharmacological, and gene therapy. For nanotechnology, it is a technology that developed at atomic, molecular, or macromolecular level that being used in areas like bioengineering, biophysics, and biochemistry. For example, using microscopic implant to monitor our bodily function and to minuscule diagnostic tools that enter body to diagnose illness effectively. Next is cybernetics that use artificial systems to improve or even replace human body function. For example, Kevin Warwick, who is the engineer, implant computer interfaces under his skin to remote electrical devices by himself. Next is pharmacological that used to treat psychological illness. For example, using modafinil or called smart drug that was popular among students to promote wakefulness, increase memory and clarity of thought. Lastly is gene therapy. So in the aspect of transhumanism, it would go beyond treating the genes and used to improve the healthy gene for desired characteristics. For example, design the babies that can jump higher, remember better, grow taller, and so on. One of the examples of transhumanism that can be seen now is the Cyborg Foundation. This foundation was established by Neil Harbison and Moon Ribas. Neil Harbison is a Guinness World Records holder as the world's first cyborg. Born with a rare form of color blindness where the skull is only perceived in the shades of grey. In 2004, he embedded an antenna into his skull that would allow him to retain his senses. The antenna also able to measure electromagnetic radiation. Phone calls and music, videos or images can be translated into audible vibrations. Plus, the Wi-Fi and enabled antenna can receive signals and data from satellites. The co-founder is Moon Ribas. International media have described her as the world's first cyborg woman. She implanted online seismic sensors in her feet that allow her to feel earthquakes through vibrations. The sensor vibrates in different levels depending on the intensity of each earthquake and is wirelessly connected to online seismograph, which means she can feel earthquake from all over the world regardless of where she is. Next, benefits and harm analysis of transhumanism. The first benefit is enhanced eyesight and hearing. Laser eye surgery and contact lenses improve back vision, while hearing aids and devices improve hearing in old people and those with partial or complete deafness. However, what transhumanists strive to achieve now is replacing the whole eye with a bionic or robotic eye, which eliminates all vision problems completely. Second is reducing the disabilities. Another major contribution of transhumanism is the development of artificial limbs. Artificial limbs have proven beneficial to people who have had bodily amputations due to accidents or other medical reasons. The third is faster thought process. The technology interventions such as brain-machine interfaces, BMRs, are being developed to change the ways we communicate with each other and with our digital devices. With the help of BMRs, it will be possible to communicate at the speed of our thoughts. BMRs are often used as assisted living devices for individuals with motor or sensory impairments. Next, the drawbacks of transhumanism include dehumanizing. Transforming the human species into a near-robotic being takes away the essence of what truly makes a human. The idea of tampering with our bodies to obtain potential immortality seems unethical and unnatural. The rise of transhuman and transhumanism, there could be a decline in the human aspects of a being. Other than that, transhumanism movement aims towards extending the human lifespan. This would cause an overpopulated world. Our Earth is already struggling to contain the billions of people currently living on it, and this has given rise to problems like climate change, global warming, and resources depletion. Lastly, with life extension, brain intelligence, and other technical enhancement, the current inequalities between rich and poor will be intensified since the advanced lifestyle determined by financial status. In another word, the rich can afford to make use of transhumanism, but the poor will not be able to. Islam is not a religion that opposes science. Even in Al-Quran, there is a direct command to seek knowledge. For example, in Surah Az-Zumar verse 39, are those who have knowledge and those who have no knowledge alike. Only those of understanding are mindful, which talks about the importance of having knowledge. Muslims who have science-related professions need to see their profession only as the extension of belief towards the Creator and must be governed by certain principles. It is needed for Muslim scientists to have God consciousness and taqwa so that they can always be aware and asking themselves the fundamental questions about what they are doing, what they hope to achieve, what the impacts of their research might be, and whether or not it will ultimately benefit their fellow human beings. Next, ethical values of Muslim and secular scientists is found to be diverged and contradict each other. This is because Muslims derive their ethical values from revelation, which describes the purpose of life and also elaborates on the meaning of behind human limitations. Meanwhile, transhumanists or secular scientists do not use Al-Quran as reference point. As transhumanism represents the most elaborate humanity's attempt in creating a new reality for our being, It is found to be befitting and sit at odds with Muslims and those who believe in the Creator. Let's do not transgress the balance. In Surah Ar-Rahman, verse 7 to 9, and He has raised up the heaven and has set a balance, that you may not transgress in the balance, but weigh things equitably and scheme not in the balance. And Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 12 and 13. And when it is said to them, believe as the people who have believed, they say, should we believe as the foolish have believed? Unquestionably, it is they who are the foolish, but they know it not. These verses are particularly relevant to transhumanism when it involves genetic intervention, because through such intervention, we can disturb the balance that exists in nature. Playing with human genes is a big step towards something that may not be fully understood. Errors at this level can cause disaster. Perhaps the most interesting of these verses is the command to make no lack of skills. This verse indicates that human beings will reach a point where they can disturb the balance. One of these relates to the ill effects of transgressing the balance. Genetically modified organisms, GMO used in foods, plants and animals, are now becoming more common. GMO processes are based on some of the same principles of transhumanist thought, such as the need to improve creation by the way of genetic intervention. It would be premature to delve into genetically modifying humans when we have yet to get a grasp on the effects of genetically modified plants and animals. On this level, the warning found in the Quran could be seen as stemming from a sense of protecting our world and ourselves. Studies have linked GMOs to a range of ailments, including blood toxins, gluten disorders, breast cancer, and 37, 38, 39 attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD in children. It could further be argued that these Quranic verses go beyond a warning of the harms that might come from transgressing the balance. The starting point is that even a healthy human being is trapped within the bounds of what they have been given, with transhumanist practice offering to give them more. Going back to the example of GMOs, one can easily see where this can lead to more harm than improvement. Next, scientific intervention versus jihad. So as we all know, one of the goals in transhumanism is to eliminate all bad things that happen in society, such as rape, lying and cheating, by using scientific intervention. However, these scientific interventions proposed by the transhumanists is said to work against or oppose free will. Free will is the possibility for individuals to choose to engage in behavior or action that is harmful to themselves, people around them, and also the whole society. The potential to do evil is also associated with having a truly free will. This is considered as foul by the transhumanists, which differs it from Islam that views this as a part of the divine design. Islam is definitely not against removing undesirable thoughts and behaviors, but not by using scientific intervention. Instead, Islam encourages its believers to do this by the way of jihad, which is struggle against oneself. Unlike transhumanism, that wants to preserve goodness by the way of scientific intervention, Muslims should preserve their goodness by practicing jihad. Transhumanists regard humans as half-baked. However, in Islam, humans are described as being born into a good state. In Al-Quran, Surah 18, verse 4-6, describes the nature of humans. We have certainly created man in the best of stature. Then we return him to the lowest of the low, except for those who believe and do righteous deeds, for they will have a reward uninterrupted. These verses tells us that humans are originally born into a good state, not half-baked like claimed by the transhumanists. Then humans will encounter challenges in the world, which may trigger the fall of the humanity. However, if humans adhere to God's guidance as laid out in the Revelation, they will succeed.
Okay, we move to the differences between secular and Islamic transhumanism. Secular transhumanism idea aims to improve sensory perception by way of scientific invention, while Islamic transhumanism calls on believers to improve and purify sensory perceptions, heart and mind through devotion to Almighty. Next, secular transhumanism focusing on the pursuit of longer and perhaps everlasting life or immortality. Meanwhile, Islamic transhumanism focuses on a better hereafter and a more spiritually and morally enlightened inhuman. This is because the concept of immortality or external life in Islam is achieved after death, having lived a life of goodness and repentance. The life of this world is only one part of the journey of the human, and it is not meant to be perfect, nor is it something Muslims should cling to. There are 5 qawaid fiqhiyah that were important in medical and health practices. Firstly, the principle of qasd or intention. The principle states that all affairs are judged by the intention. Thus, immoral methods used to achieve beneficial medical purposes are deemed impermissible. For example, the prescription of morphine with the intentions of causing respiratory depression to cause euthanasia will be deemed impermissible. The second principle is principle of yaqeen, or certainty, where all medical procedures are deemed permissible unless their prohibition is certain. Although certainty is theoretically the ideal, sound medical judgment as a minimum should be based on predominant assumption which is superior to doubt. Thirdly, the principle of darar or in-injury, which means any injury should be relieved and any harms of a therapy should be minimized. In other words, the avoidance of harm has priority over the pursuit of a benefit or lesser worth. The fourth principle is principle of darura or necessity. This principle states that cases of necessity can render an otherwise prohibited action as permissible. For example, sterilization, which is absolutely prohibited in Islam, but may become permissible if a potential pregnancy may severely threaten a woman's life. After reading the article and brainstorming session, there are two take-home messages that we can reflect on. First, it is important to know the limitations in celebrating the technologies. Technology improves exponentially every second and becomes more complex beyond our grasp. We are encouraged to celebrate the development of technology and science, but at the same time, we need to know to what extent we celebrated the revolution of technology. The limitation mentioned in this context is that the application of technology in science should not challenge the power of Allah. In Islam, it is not wrong for us to change into something better than before, but the changes should not exceed the limitation. Other than that, we as a future biomedical scientist should apply our knowledge in a correct way and benefit the population. For example, we should not use our knowledge to make unnecessary genetic modification and bioterrorism weapons. Second, it is important for us to think critically. In Surah Al-A'raf verse 179, Allah said, "We have created many jinn and people who are destined for hell, with hearts they do not use for comprehension, eyes they do not use for sight, ears they do not use for hearing. They are like cattle, no even further astray. These are the ones who are entirely headless." The problem that arises today is we do not realize what world we are living in. Since transhumanism strives for perfection, humans will not challenge themselves to think and make decisions wisely. Allah said in Surah Al-A'raf verse 20, "But Satan whispered to them to make apparent to them that which was concealed from them of their private parts. He said, Your Lord did not forbid you this tree except that you become angels or become of the immortal." From this verse, we should clear that immortality is a satanic idea since the creation of Adam alayhi salam, as we acknowledge that Satan will mislead human beings until the end. Thus, it is clear that immortality, which is the satanic idea, is opposed from Islam and misleading humankind. We as a Khalifah is entrusted or responsible by Allah to manage and govern this world according to the law of Allah, according to Sharia. Thus, anything that deviates from Sharia and comes from satanic idea should be avoided. In conclusion, anything that brings us back to Allah is a good thing. We need to understand that we learn science with the objective to understand Allah. Current and future Muslim scientists must adopt an Islamic worldview in understanding science and in development of science technology. Otherwise, we will risk losing scientific inquisitive skills that can further decline scientific understanding in Muslim society. Al-Quran has provided rules, guides, and examples for Muslims' way of life. However, there will be future developments in human civilization that will change the dogma of the Quran. As Muslims, we should start thinking and discussing about the Muslims' way of life according to the Al-Quran for future developments.